The following is an exclusive presentation of WI Garden Media, the voice of Garden Talk Radio. Coming up on the program today, we're going to go over 7 spring and summer flowers that you can plant right now, as well as squash and some of the techniques and problems that you may face when growing it. As well as good friend of the show, author Jessica Walliser will be with us, plus answering your garden questions. And that all starts right now.
You are listening to the most informationally packed hour of garden-focused radio in the country and on the internet with your host, husband and wife team Joey and Holly Baird. This is the Gardening with Joey and Holly radio show.
Welcome to the Gardening with Joey and Holly radio show. Thank you for being part of the program today. I'm your host, Joey Baird. Beside me is my wife, co-host, best friend, and gardening partner,
Holly Baird.
This program is for you, about you, to help your garden grow better, to maintain your landscape, to have healthier trees and greener grass, as well as canning what you grow. Whether you're listening to us on one of the 15 stations broadcasting our program this year in 2021, through a radio app, through our website, our parent website, the WisconsinVegetableGardener.com, underneath the Season 5 at the top of the page, podcast replay, or in-studio video replay, thank you very much for being part of the program and being with us today. We've got, you can get a hold of us, before we get in the show, you can get a hold of us in a couple of manners. One is by our email, gardentalkradio@gmail.com, gardentalkradio@gmail.com. Or if you'd like to talk with us, you can give us a call at 1-800-927-SHOW, 1-800-927-SHOW. If we can't get to you during the program, please leave a message and we will call you back with the answer to your situation. Well, let's get in the program, Holly. Spring is getting closer and closer, and maybe you want flowers on your property, in your flower bed around the house, but you're not one of these individuals who goes and plants a whole bunch of bulbs in the fall. You want to have flowers that pop up in the spring.
Just like an annual.
Annual, yeah.
I have a situation.
You have a situation.
I like flowers.
You like flowers. There's nothing wrong with liking flowers.
But I like vegetables too.
Right. Okay.
And I like sunflowers.
Okay.
Is that a vegetable?
Sure, why not? So we're going to go over 7 flowers in which you can plant, either based on where you're at right now, either start them indoors in a root maker's tray or a grow bag, or direct sow them outside, and then when the time comes, they'll pop up, or that type of thing. So we're going to go over 7 of them. Now there's about 75 or 80 different things here, but we're going to go over some of the ones that Holly enjoys.
Well, and just in general, these are good options. And also, if you forget to plant this seed, you can buy the starts, most of these, at any garden center. So if you're like, I don't have seeds, or I forgot, or whatever, you can find the starts. And
with a couple of these, you can dig them up in the fall, bring them inside, and keep them in your window, and then kind of turn them into a perennial.
Right. Yes, if that's something you want to do. But these are more for like annual, whatever.
Right. Low maintenance, pretty flowers.
Mm-hmm.
Look at them, be happy. So here we go.
So the first one is pansies and violas. I know I like violas for sure. We grow them on our little porch deck thing every year. And so those are grown as annual. So they can become, once it gets hot out, once it gets warmer, so like into July, they kind of don't do as well. But if you keep them in shade, they do better. So that's a shade flower. But the heat of the summer will kind of, they're kind of sensitive. But they can survive a mild freeze or even a frost. So if you buy them from the garden center, and maybe you have a freeze or a frost or something, a light frost.
You put them in a little early?
Yeah, you put them in a little early, you get excited. So they are typically the first annual that you're going to have in the spring.
Then we have impatiens.
Yes, and those are the ones that can be perennial in 7 zones, 10 to 11.
And they can get 6. They can grow from 6 inches to 2 foot tall. So with any of these flowers, like if you're going to do a flower bed, you want to know the height so you know how to stagger the planting, which means the tallest ones in the back, and then progressively work your way down. Like the school picture, the tall person, tall people in the back type of thing.
if that's what you want to do.
Well, I mean, you're going to shade out some of the pretty flowers if you've got a big, tall 3-foot flower in front of a 6-inch flower.
Right. No, I'm not saying you're
Right.
wrong. I'm saying, or you could just be like chaos.
Yeah, true.
So impatiens are nice. They attract birds. So if you like birds in your garden, that's a good thing. They like more of like a loamy soil, so a little bit of looser, maybe sandy, not necessarily sandier, but a little bit sandier. But they'll grow pretty much anywhere. They don't want to be waterlogged, so keep that in mind. Maybe if you have a low-lying area in your garden that might get a little bit mucky, don't put your impatiens there. And they're another partial or full shade plant, so they like the shade.
Right. Next one is cosmos. We've got, they can do a lot of different things. They can get 18 to 60 inches tall, so 1.5 to 5 foot tall, give or take. Bloom in the spring through summer into fall, so that's good, kind of a full spectrum there.
They like the full sun.
And they grow quickly.
From seed. So,
and they help repel mosquitoes, so that might be something. That's cosmos. They help repel mosquitoes, might be something you want to look into.
Yeah.
And full sun, can be grown in full sun. So when we say full sun, we mean 8+ hours, but I would guess that some of these could tolerate 6 to 7 hours if you don't have that availability there.
Right. So morning glories, this is another one that I like because it vines.
Yeah, it's a vine. It's a vine, so you got to be careful with this one.
Right. So like if you want to grow something, if you grow sunflowers, you want to grow something with the sunflowers. If you grow morning glories, they're going to climb up the sunflowers. So that's a good option, and we've kind of done that before. They bloom late summer, early fall, so they're going to bloom with the sunflowers as well. And they self-sow. So like if you plant them in an area, they might continue to come back year after year.
And with the morning glories, especially, the morning glories, prefer moderate to fertile, well-draining soil. Now, each flower, based on the characteristics, yes or no, based on how much water you want to water. Like the cosmos, they like water. They like to be watered well, but they like to go through a dry cycle before they get watered again. Kind of like herbs. Some herbs, like rosemary, likes that wet, completely dry, and then wet, because otherwise you can get root rot.
Right, but if you're planting outside, sometimes
it's beyond your control to a certain
Yeah.
Nasturtiums.
Yeah, those are an edible flower. Even the leaves are edible, so that's something that's kind of cool about them. Those are quick growing. They like the full sun. Try not to overwater them, and
8 to 10 feet tall.
They bloom. Yeah, they bloom. They bloom for a while from May until September. So, if you want like a full summer flower, it's a good option. Here's Joey's favorite.
Geraniums. We recently did a video on our YouTube channel as well as our website propagating a white geranium that we had purchased last year from our local independent garden center, and it's worked very well. And we also propagated a red geranium, in which we've had hanging in the window for 5+ years. So we've done both of those, and everything took. There was no failure on that whatsoever.
Yeah, that was kind of fun.
And these can grow 3 to 24 inches tall. However, now, when we have them in the window over the winter, they can grow about 6 foot tall.
It got a little out of control.
We cut it back, and those cuttings is what we use to propagate the additional plants now that we have.
If you're looking for an easy flower to grow that wants to grow, a geranium is exactly.
And there's all different colors, too.
Yeah.
White, red, pink, lavender, purple, magenta, rose, and I'm sure they're maneuvering and morphing different colors in each year.
I want a purple geranium.
They have them available. We'll get you one.
All right.
Snapdragons.
Snapdragons are cool. They come in a lot of different colors, and that's what a lot of people like about them, because they can fill in or use them for certain colors.
And they can be a perennial in zones 5 through 10. I know there's some places over there in the Minneapolis area that listens to us that are in zone 4, so you would be pushing the border. Even 5 is pushing the border on some of these. When we say border pushing, each plant is designed to grow in a certain growing zone. So if you have a peach tree, for example, and I'm just pulling a name out, and it's capable of growing in a zone from 5 to 9. If you're in a zone 5, you're still in borderline. If you're in zone 6 and you're growing a tree that's capable of growing a zone cooler than yours, you're pretty much never going to lose that tree, most likely. But if it's 5 and you're in 5, it's going to be kind of a touch and go in certain years.
Right.
So snapdragons can grow 6 to 15 inches tall.
And those are full sun.
Bloom from spring to fall. Cool summer growing conditions is what they require. So you can kind of put those in strategic locations. And then we have marigolds.
I always think of my grandparents when I think of marigolds. They always have them in their yard. And just so you know, people say that marigolds will stop bunnies, and
they will stop the bunnies while they eat the marigolds and then progress into the garden to eat your beans and your other stuff.
They stall them for about 5 seconds.
Right. Now, there is, I have heard, and I don't know if this is accurate, so here we go, that there's a European type of marigold that does stop the rabbits, and the American kind does not. I don't know how much validity is behind that, but I have heard such stories.
Right. But if you go to your local garden center, pick up a pack of marigolds, they're not going to necessarily be the right ones.
True.
But the cool thing about marigolds is you have to deadhead them, which means you have to take the blooms off when they're looking kind of meh, and then they're going to continue to be prolific throughout the summer.
That's called deadheading, and that's what you need to do in order to get these things to...
Especially, but with marigolds,
right?
Yeah, that really helps them produce beautiful blooms for you.
Think of flowers like you do vegetables, like your tomatoes, your eggplants, your cucumbers. If you keep picking the dead flower heads off, they're going to keep producing for you, just like cucumbers and tomatoes. And beans, if you leave that fruit and the beans on the pod, on the vine, and never harvest them, that plant shuts down. They produce the seeds and they are done. So continue to harvest on the fruits and vegetables in order to get the plant keep producing. Same thing with the flowers, or specific flowers, in this instance, the marigolds, so they keep producing buds and blooms all season long.
Right.
So we've talked about flowers, we talk about vegetables, but what about the meat? There's some of you that enjoy a good steak or a good hamburger, and some of you enjoy processing that particular cut all by yourself, and Walton's Incorporated has those tools for you.
Yeah, we know you care about where your food comes from. Canning and preserving your fruits and vegetables is great, but what about the meat? At waltonsinc.com, you can get all the equipment, seasoning, and supplies to make sausage, jerky, any other meat product your way, delicious burgers, and then you can even season your vegetables.
They have good seasoning.
They have really good seasoning. And it's to your standards. So Walter's created meatgistics.com. It's an informational site to help you make the best finished product. They have a full line of their own meat grinders, mixers, sausage stuffers to help you go from animal to edible. Walton's is everything but the meat. Again, that's Walton's Inc., waltonsinc.com.
Well, when we come back, do you try to grow squash? Do you try to, and the success level is not that high? We're going to go over squash growing techniques and what you need to know so you have a successful harvest this year. You're listening to the Gardening with Joey and Holly radio show, a program to help your garden grow better.
Got a question for Joey and Holly? Send it via email anytime to gardentalkradio@gmail.com.
Do your trees look sad? When we here at the Gardening with Joey and Holly radio show gardens have tree and shrub issues, Dr. Jim's is the product we reach for, as it is the product that works. It really provides results. Their small batch, extra potent blend of readily available nutrients is exactly what your trees, plants, and bushes need to regain their health and stay bug-free. It's super easy to use. It feeds the microbes and adds new life to your soil so you can grow stronger plants. Chemical-free, environmentally responsible fertilizer that works. It will put a smile on you and your plants. To find out more about Tree Secret and other products, visit drjims.com. That's drjimz.com. Did you know that all flour is not created equal? Janie's Mill carefully stone grinds all their certified organic wheat, rye, corn, buckwheat, and heirloom and ancient grains so that you get every bit of taste and nutrition nature intended. Some flours really are better than others, and you deserve the best. Get it at janiesmill.com.
Straw bale gardening is all the rage. Get your bale started easily with the Bale Buster Straw Bale Conditioning Formula. This is the only product that has been specifically formulated for use in straw bale gardening. Each unit contains 250 million colony-forming units of trichoderma, fungi, and Bacillus bacteria, in addition to the fertilizer itself, produces fantastic results with a bountiful production of vegetable crops. Start with the best to get the best, traditional or organic formula. Take the guesswork out of conditioning your straw bale. Go to balebuster.com to find out more.
Have essential oils always confused you like they did me? Take out some of the guesswork with Simply Earth. The Simply Earth Essential Oil Recipe Box will help you gain confidence and clarity in using essential oils to help make your home toxin-free. Here's how it works. You receive the recipe box with 4 pure essential oils, 6 recipe cards, and extras. Then you learn how to use your essential oils while making the recipes created by certified aromatherapists. Clear and concise step-by-step directions. Save money and detoxify your life. I got to make fun products that will detoxify my home while also learning safe ways to use my essential oils. The best part is these oils don't break my budget. Simply Earth's essential oils are 100% pure and come from the best farms from all over the world. Using essential oils to support your wellness doesn't have to be overwhelming. My home is one step closer to being toxin-free because I made the wax melts and more with the Simply Earth Essential Oil Recipe Box. Visit simplyearth.com to find your recipe box and more.
You move your lawn sprinklers all over the yard, but you always end up putting them in the same spots. Why not just bury them there? Out of sight, always ready to use, pre-adjusted to water the precise areas you want. Quick Snap Sprinklers makes it easy. In-ground sprinklers without the hassle or expense of laying pipe. Put the sprinklers anywhere in your lawn or garden. Snap on a hose to supply the water. Water on, it pops up. Water off, it drops below ground. You can mow right over it. You can have a buried sprinkler system up and running in just minutes. Each Quick Snap saves thousands of dollars. They install in minutes and operate for years. Visit quicksnapsprinkler.com. If you're sick of having a thin, poor-colored lawn despite all the fertilizing you do, you're not alone. The problem is the soil. It's compacted or clay-like, and basically there's not enough air in the root zone for healthy, vibrant growth. But this can be fixed a lot easier than you may think. Introducing Aerify Plus Liquid Soil Aerator. Aerify Plus from our friends at Nature's Lawn breaks up and revitalizes the soil, allowing life-giving air and nutrients to get to the roots of your lawn and your garden too. Garden Talk listeners, you can get 10% off Aerify Plus by going to natureslawn.com/gardentalk. That's natureslawn.com/gardentalk. We've been using a game-changing tool called SeedLinked to find and review our seeds this year. It makes finding the right seeds simple. It is driven by growers' data, so you can really see what's best for your location. Check it out at seedlinked.com or download the mobile app today. Deer Defeat is an all-natural repellent to keep deer, rabbits, and groundhogs away from your precious plants. Deer Defeat protects your plants day and night, dries clear, and odorless. It will not clog your sprayer. Deer Defeat works for 30 days through rain, snow, and freeze. Safe, effective, and works on rabbits. Money-back guarantee. To purchase, go to deerdefeat.com and use code RADIO to save 10% on your order. Deer Defeat. It can't be beat. Unleash an army of predators. Call the Bug Farm, 1-800-248-BUGS. RinconVitova.com. The Gardening with Joey and Holly radio show is brought to you by the following: Blue Ribbon Organics, Naturally Green Products, Ironwood Tool Company, Easy Step Products, Rinse Kit, Soul Brew Kombucha, Wild Delight, Rincon Vitova, Chip Drop, BaleBuster.com. Find all sponsors at the WisconsinVegetableGardener.com and thank them for their support. Welcome back to the Gardening with Joey and Holly radio show. Thanks for being with us today. Let's talk about watering your trees and your shrubs and your flowers and your vegetables with a product that we use, which is Tree Diaper.
How do you water your trees? You likely drag a hose over to it, let the hose run for about a half an hour, go and do something else. Stop doing that. Increase your watering efficiency and save money with Tree Diaper. No hoses to drag around constantly. Tree Diaper is a revolutionary watering system that slowly releases stored rainwater when trees need it. The Tree Diaper is filled with water from rain or when you water and slowly releases water over 3 weeks. Tree Diaper will improve the way you water your plants. Every time it rains, Tree Diaper recharges. Made in the USA. Check out all the sizes they have available. Tree Diaper will keep your trees happy. Visit treediaper.com. That's treediaper.com.
Well, you can also use Tree Diaper to water your squash. It would work very well for this particular application. Let's talk about squash. Squash, there's a lot of different squashes to speak of. You got your pumpkins, you got your gourds, you got your zucchini, you got your butternut, your spaghetti, your acorn, and the list goes on and on. They fall in a larger category, I guess is what you would call it, Holly.
Right. So, yeah. So one is the cucurbita, and it's an herbaceous vine in the gourd family, and it's typically found in the Andes Mountains area. And there's 5 different species grown worldwide, so that includes squash, pumpkin, or gourd. And yeah, so that's the, I guess, like the mother of it.
Yeah, the umbrella of the thing. Now, we all have grown squash, or if you're a new gardener, we're going to tell you things not to do so you can be successful the first time. The rest of us, we've made these mistakes. We want to, number one, squash needs full sun. It can tolerate slight shade, which I mean like 1 or 2 hours, but it needs as much sun as you can provide it. And you will see this online. If you're on social media, you will see people in the, I've seen it 2 weeks ago. I got my first-time gardener, which I understand, but they've already got like squash that's 6 inches tall, vining across their grow table, their containers, and the squash doesn't and can't go out for at least another 4 to 7 weeks, give or take.
We did that.
Yeah, we've made that mistake. We've done it.
Yeah.
We didn't do it again because starting squash indoors does not make logistical sense because, you look at the package, start 4 to 2 weeks before your last average frost date, and then transplant into the garden without damaging the roots. These plants are extremely tender and fidgety with the roots. So some people will start them in the peat pots and then bury them that way. You get them from the store that way. Or you can plant them outside 2 to 3 weeks after your last frost of the spring has occurred. Just put them in the ground and it will work. They will catch themselves up. If you did the comparison of two, you started indoors and then you started from seed in about 4 weeks, they're the same size. But right. You want to plant them when the soil, here's the key, you just can't throw them on the ground whenever the soil can be worked. The soil needs to be 65 degrees. And when we talk 65 degrees, Holly, we're talking not because, it's been 65 degrees for 3 days, let's plant squash.
We're talking about the soil.
Soil
when
temperature.
You dig down, 8 inches or so.
Well, let's just go 4 inches safely. How do we test that temperature if we don't have a soil thermometer?
I don't know, Joey. How do you test the temperature?
You go in the kitchen and you get your meat thermometer. Or you can get it from Walton's Incorporated. Meat thermometers work great. You just clean them off when you're done. You get an instant accurate temperature. And soil temperature 4 inches down at root zone, 72 degrees. Let's plant squash. So that's a great way in order to know what temperature for anything. Peppers need about 60, 65. Tomatoes need at least a 50. Corn, 45 minimum. 55 really adequate for soil temperature for planting. So there's a lot of charts online in which can identify the soil temperature, but meat thermometer works great. And guys, if you use the meat thermometer enough, you'll get to keep it. And your wife or your girlfriend or whomever will buy a new one for themselves. So keep that in mind.
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah.
This hasn't happened yet.
Not yet. No. So what other things do we, and we're going to get to some of the problems in which you will or may face or have faced in the past with growing squash, with some of the problems here. But first of all, when we're growing squash, it is not typically a crop in which you can grow in a very small, limited amount of space situation.
You can, but you have to
certain varieties.
Right, but you could grow it on the side of, not the side, but on the edge of a raised bed or something like that. But at that point, it is going to vine out. So if you are okay with it vining out into your yard, that's fine. But it does take up that space. And
what I mean by space, a typical pumpkin plant can take 50 to 100 square feet of real estate for a normal plant.
Right. I know that one year my sister was growing those pumpkins.
She didn't have a backyard that summer.
They kind of took over. They were mowing around it, But they got beautiful
The
pumpkins.
kids had a great time. Yeah, and they didn't have to mow most of the yard most of the summer because the cucumber or the pumpkins and the butternut squash and spaghetti squash took over. So you want it now with your smaller squashes like acorn or delectica, you can vine them up. Butternut spaghetti, I know some people have had great success trellising them. However, these things can get 3, 5, 6 pounds at maturity.
We made that squash trellis thing.
Right.
What was that?
It was a rotating fan grates where we stacked made shelves basically, and the plants grew up on the shelf, produced their fruit, and then we also did a squash shelf where we had
That's what it was, the
3 levels.
shelf.
It was like it looked to if you have no idea what we're talking about. If you have ever looked like at a big box store, the way they have the additional items stacked up the wall, the overflow items, we essentially did that. It was 10 foot tall, and it had 3 layers of rubber coated mesh fencing, and the plants would kind of intertwine all the way up and then lay and produce the fruit on the shelving.
But we would help it.
We would help it.
But yeah, it
takes a lot of space is what we're saying. So if you're a new-time gardener and you have the availability to utilize that space,
or build yourself a squash shelf.
It will work very well. Now, the trellising you can also trellis zucchini. Zucchini can be trellised because zucchini is technically a vine. Every time the zucchini plant, this is green or yellow, produces a fruit, that will never produce. It works itself up the vine. So if you have a zucchini that you harvest that's 8 inches from soil, there's never going to be another zucchini growing from that zucchini to soil level. The vine continues to grow outward and vine and produces more and more as you harvest or as the season progresses. So that's a unique thing about the squash. Now, all these things have unique characteristics, which being they produce male flowers and then female flowers.
Right. So basically the male flowers will open first. Those are the first set of flowers you see. And then in about 7 to 14 days, the female flowers come out. In order to if you ever have problems with the fruit not developing, then what you can do is when you see the first set of flowers, you just take your finger, touch the middle of the flower, make it kind of feel like it's going to get pollinated type of feeling. And then when it puts out, it's going to put out a good amount of female flowers. If that all plants care about is reproducing themselves. That's what they want to do. So if they feel like they're not going to have a good chance of being reproduced, then they're not going to work towards it. So when you touch the middle of that flower, that plant is feeling like, oh, I'm going to be stimulated, and then I'm going to be able to reproduce, and then it's going to put out equal to more amount of female flowers to help that reproduction.
Yeah, it's 7 to 14 days by the female bloom. Both male and female flowers last for 1 day. Some people will harvest the male flowers and cook them. That is a specialty. And no squash, with the vine is blooming, but no squash. That can be like you talked about, the lack of pollination and the plant not thinking there's pollinators available. So let's talk about blossom end rot. No, that is a squash problem as well. It's whenever you have the wet, the dry, and the plant cannot access the calcium in the soil in order to properly develop the fruit, or in this case, the zucchini. Then you have about a 2 or 3 inch baby zucchini, and it's all black and it's starting to rot. Just like you get on the bottom of your tomatoes when you don't have adequate watering. You got plenty of calcium, you don't have the water to allow that calcium to be picked up and took into the plant to properly develop the item in which you're wanting to grow. Also, we have problems with squash vine borer. Squash vine borer is a moth that comes early in the season. It typically will attack most of your squashes, excluding butternut squash, because the stem is too tough for it to burrow into to lay its larva. So on your zucchini, your acorn squash, your delectica, your pumpkins, you need to be vigilant about this. And with your zucchini, you can plant later in the year because the reproductive cycle of these particular nasty insects is over. However, with your long duration squashes, your pumpkins and stuff, you got to get them as soon in the ground as soon as possible.
And you can usually spot it. You can look at the base of your plant.
You have to look at the base,
and
yes.
you'll see something that looks like sawdust, and it means that the squash vine borer has bored into that base of the plant and laid its larva.
Now, at this point, then you take your little surgical knife out and slice down about 2 inches above and below where that insertion was at, and you just open it up gently, just like you were cutting a piece of really flimsy drain pipe, and you're going to open up and you're going to see these worms come out. If you're fidgety about this, you got to get somebody else to do it. But this is what saves your zucchini, your pumpkins. We've done this many years over and over again in order for us to successfully have zucchini, pumpkins, and squashes. You extract those out, and you can leave it alone as long as you don't sever the vine completely. You're just taking a slit out of, just slitting it down about 3 or 4 inches and peeling it open to expose those larvae, and you get the larvae out, kill them, and then the plant will still survive and produce, because what that larvae is doing here, it's eating the internal portions out of that plant, preventing water uptake and nutrient uptake. You may have experienced this whenever
you go out, you see your plants, they look like they need to be watered. They look all wilty. You water them. The next day, they're still wilty. It's not good, and then usually the day after that, they're dead.
It's okay for the plants to be wilting if you don't have that problem on really hot days. You can also increase the mulch around the plant, but that's normal. If they don't pop back or come back to full surface area tension in the evening, then you've got a problem. But plants typically will reduce the amount of surface area on them in order to prevent them from getting too much sun exposure. Soon it will be warming up, Holly, and you don't want to be sharing your yard with beetles or grubs, and Phylum Bioproducts has the product that can help us with that.
Right, and spring is just around the corner. It's time to start thinking about those beetles and grubs in your yard, and Grub Gone can help you with that.
Grub Gone can be applied to the turf of your garden or around ornamentals to control the grubs and lessen the impact of beetles they have on your yard this summer. Easy to use, apply with any commercial spreader or irrigate into the soil. Biologically, that specifically targets the grubs and beetles invaders without harming beneficial bees, ladybugs, or butterflies.
And to be honest, it's the only non-chemical that actually works. You can find out more at phyllumbioproducts.com. That's PHYLLOM bioproducts.com. phyllumbioproducts.com.
When we come back, our good friend and author of a new book, Jessica Walliser, will be with us. You're listening to the Gardening with Joey and Holly radio show.
Got a question for Joey and Holly? Send it via email anytime to gardentalkradio@gmail.com.
The number one key to healthy, productive plants are the roots. Starting from seed to full-grown plants, rootmaker.com has the answer. From seed starting trays with an innovative design that air prunes the roots, creating a fabulous root system, never again will you have root-bound plants, to multiple gallon grow bag sizes to raised beds. Rootmaker.com has your grow needs covered. Visit rootmaker.com. Use coupon code RADIO21 and get 15% off your entire order.
Dig planting holes from a comfortable standing position. Step, twist, pull, and plant. Visit ProPlugger.com. Make watering easy. DripWorks provides quality drip irrigation supplies and equipment to gardeners just like you for all your growing needs across the U.S. and Canada. Purchase online at dripworks.com.
See what all you can do with a real Tiger Torch. Visit TigerTorchLTD.com for more information. Seed Savers Exchange has been saving, preserving, and sharing heirloom seeds since 1975, and today continues to provide those seeds for gardeners just like you. They have over 600 varieties. Visit seedsavers.org to request a free catalog or to purchase seeds online for this year's growing season. That's seedsavers.org.
Pomona's Universal Pectin is a high-quality pectin that gels reliably with low amounts of any sweetener. If you're trying to reduce the amount of sugar in your diet, you'll love Pomona's Universal Pectin. Now you can make healthy homemade jams and jellies sweetened to your taste. You can use sugar or honey to sweeten. Pomona's Universal Pectin keeps indefinitely when stored in an airtight container. Easy to use, versatile, and comes with directions and recipes in every box. Find out more and where to buy at PomonaPectin.com. Also available at natural food stores and online.
Brought to you by Blue Ribbon Organics, providing locally made organic compost and soil blends for gardens, farms, landscaping, and more. Visit BlueRibbonOrganics.com or call 262-497-8539 to find their products nearest you. The Gardening with Joey and Holly radio show is brought to you by the following: Pro Plugger, Dripworks, Waltons Incorporated, Tree Diaper, Janie's Mill, Phylum Bioproducts, Chapin Manufacturing Incorporated, Nature's Lawn and Garden Incorporated, Deer Defeat, Dr. Jim's, Root Maker. Find all sponsors at the WisconsinVegetableGardener.com and thank them for their support. Welcome back to the Gardening with Joey and Holly radio show. Moments away, our good friend and author, Jessica Walliser. But first, do you have ants? Ants are not good in the garden, and they're certainly not good in the house, and Rescue has an ant bait that will get rid of them for you.
Ant colonies become noticeable around the house starting in spring. I know for us, we get them every spring in our bathroom. They seek food and moisture sources to feed their colonies. Once they establish a food source, they lay pheromone trails for other ants to follow. So if you send these ants to the Rescue ant bait stations, they will transport the bait back to their colony, killing ants at the source. Ants look for sugars to feed their workers and protein to feed the queen and larva. Rescue ant baits use both protein and sugar for a faster, more complete colony kill. Unlike any other ant baits that leak and spill all over your floor, Rescue ant baits are spill-proof and mess-free. They're also child-resistant and safe to use around the home. Better bait, no mess, and child-resistant Rescue ant baits have it all. Like all Rescue products, their ant baits are made in the USA. Rescue.com is where to buy. Again, that's Rescue.com.
Holly, let's go to the hotline and bring in our guest for this week.
Jessica Walliser is an author, garden blogger, columnist, and all-around horticultural and botanical enthusiast. She lives in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania with her family. Welcome to the program, Jessica.
Thank you so much, Holly. It's nice to be with you guys.
Well, it's always nice to have you come back on the program. I've said this once, and I'll say it again. We always know when a new book has come out that Jessica has published because the male woman or male man delivers it right to our door. So we know, hey, new book. And we're excited to have that. And we'll talk about that new book momentarily.
Now, most people know that bees are endangered, or some bees, or a lot of bees are endangered. Other than planting flowers and flowering plants, what are some ways that we can help the bees?
That's a great question, Holly. Yeah, you're right. There are some bees that are endangered, but even those that aren't on any official list are actually facing some pretty dramatic population declines. And certainly a lack of forage and nectar is part of it. As you mentioned, planting a lot of diversity of flowers is a very good way to help those little bees, native bees in particular. But there's certainly other things we can do. Number one for me is creating habitat for them. Not just foraging habitat, but also nesting habitat. Most of our 4,000-ish species of North American native bees actually nest in little tiny cavities by themselves. They're solitary nesters. They don't make like a big hive. So anytime we can leave like hollow stems standing in the garden, when you do your spring cleanup, leave about 8 to 10 inches of stubble on the perennials in your garden, especially those that have hollow stems, and they will use those as little brood chambers. And these are not bees that can sting. They're very, docile bees. So that's a great way to help them, just by allowing them to have a space to build a nest in your garden.
Well, that's interesting. And I want to ask about your book here. In your new book, Planting Partners, Science-Based Companion Planting Strategies, you talk about actual science behind true companion planting. What was one of the most surprising and unique companion planting techniques that you learned when writing this book? And I ask you that because Holly and I, we've talked to Garden Talks and online that, you type in companion planting, you get 47 charts and 38 of them are completely different from one another. And I like this because it's science-based. What was the most unique thing that you learned in this research?
Yeah, that's a bit like asking me to pick a favorite child, uh, which is why I only had one child, so I was never forced to pick a favorite, right? It was crazy because during the research, I was surprised to find just literally hundreds of studies that examined plant partnerships in the garden and different ways that they could benefit us. I would say probably, the pest management aspect of companion planting seems to be the most popular mission for gardeners, right? That's the reason why they employ companion planting. So I would say some of the strategies that I found actual research on in terms of pest management were most surprising to me. In particular, the number of studies that were done on trap cropping, which is where you're basically partnering two plants together, and one of them is meant to sort of lure away the pests from the desired plant. So it becomes almost like a sacrificial plant, right? That you're planting so that the bug damage is on that plant instead of your main plant. So like in my garden, I always plant my radishes right next to my tomato transplants. And that's because we have a major issue with flea beetles. So flea beetles much prefer the radish in my garden. So they'll go to the radish and they'll leave my young tomato transplants alone. So it's a great way to sort of lure them away from the plants that I can still harvest the radish, obviously, because they don't damage the roots. They only damage the leaves, but I end up getting healthier tomatoes as a result.
That's definitely, trap planting is definitely I think, really great idea. Now, many of us have heard of polyculture and its increasing and how it increases plant biodiversity. Does companion planting do the same? Is it a similar science, kind of like the trap planting?
But, yeah. I mean, in a lot of ways, they're one and the same, because companion planting is partnering plants together. A lot of people think it has to be like plant A with plant B, that it has to be just two plants together. But the way I like to think of it, and the way I talk about in Plant Partners, is that it is creating a polyculture. It's not just two plants partnered together. It's basically creating a very biodiverse environment where the result of all of that biodiversity is stability. It's fewer pest outbreaks, it's fewer disease outbreaks, it's fewer weeds, right? So we all know diversity equals stability. I mean, that's true in people too, right? In all ecosystems. And so we can definitely do that in the garden. I mean, that should be a mission, to build that polyculture of as many species as possible. Instead of everything being in a straight row in your vegetable garden, a row of cabbages, a row of peppers, a row of tomatoes, mix it all up. Get some flowering herbs in there and flowering annual plants, and that's going to improve that biodiversity and make your garden a more stable place.
Well, you are the bug lady. You wrote the book Good Bug, Bad Bug. And I'll ask you, what are some well-known good bugs that most people have in their garden, and how can we keep those good bugs in the garden or attract more good bugs? I know there's got to be a little balance of good and bad in order for the everything to work out, but how can we bring in more good bugs, and how can we keep the ones we have, and what are some of them?
Yeah, so I'll answer the second question first, which is how we keep them. And one of the main ways we keep them goes back to that biodiversity, and that turning your vegetable garden into a polyculture of mixed plants together, because that's really the kind of habitat that they need. That's the shelter that they need. A lot of them, even though they will eat other bugs, right? That's their protein source. They'll eat aphids and, spider mites and whiteflies and things like that. But another part of their diet has to be carbohydrates, and that's found in nectar. So the more greater diversity of flowering plants that you can have in your garden, the better it is for all of these good bugs as well. So that can be things like hoverflies, also called syrphid flies. They're sort of a bee mimic. They look a little bit like a bee. A lot of them have the sort of black and yellow stripes on them. And you'll see them kind of hovering around your flowers, in particular members of the daisy family, which they really love to nectar on. The adults are pollinators. It's actually their larvae that are predaceous. So they love to eat aphids, right? So you see them a lot of times kind of like a little slug-like creature that crawls around on your plants and eats aphids. So they're a really, really common one to see in gardens. Of course, ladybugs are another really good one. Ladybugs love to nectar on members of the carrot family. So that could be dill, parsley that goes to flower, fennel that you leave go to flower, anything that sort of has that umbrella-shaped flower. flower clusters together is really, really good for ladybugs. And they're predaceous both in the adult stage and the larval stage as well. So yeah, my book, Good Bug, Bad Bug. I have another one, Attracting Beneficial Bugs to Your Garden, where I really dive into a whole bunch of these different species of beneficial insects and how you can use them to your advantage in the garden.
Now, with people who are maybe new to gardening and they see videos of people purchasing bugs, good bugs, to let loose in their garden, do you recommend that? Do you not recommend that? Or it's a balance of a good and a bad thing altogether?
Yeah, that's a great question, Joey. I mean, I personally don't recommend it. And there's a couple reasons why. The main fact is that you already have a lot of these good bugs in your garden. I mean, unless you are regularly blanketing your garden with, a broad spectrum pesticides, you have a lot of good bugs already there. So I would much rather encourage people to encourage all of those good bugs that are already there, right? I mean, create an environment that welcomes them. Stop using the pesticides to allow them to do their work on your behalf. And that should be your goal. It should be fostering the indigenous population as much as possible. The other thing is when you buy them in, when you buy, beneficial insects in, sometimes you could be bringing diseases, into the indigenous population in your garden. It's cost you money. And of course, there's no guarantee that they're going to stick around, right? The other thing with ladybugs, if you purchase ladybugs, like the little canisters you sometimes see at the garden center, on the shelf there by the checkout, those are almost always convergent ladybugs, which is a North American native ladybug species, but they're actually wild collected. They're wild collected from mountaintops where they overwinter in large groups. And so they suck them up with backpack vacuums, package them up, and ship them to places all over the country. So it's also impacting, in that case, wild populations as well. So it's much better to just encourage the ones that you already have in your garden.
Definitely. Now, many people struggle with keeping their containers watered, especially during the peak of the summer. Maybe they're not home to check them during the middle of the day. What are some good irrigation watering techniques for containers?
That's a good question too, because I think I have a YouTube video coming out about this soon, about really the proper way to water containers. A lot of people do what I like to call the splash and dash method, which is where they're just sort of like sprinkling the water on top of the plants. And they sort of splash it on there and then, that's good enough. And then they walk away, right? And that's kind of like watering in a hurry. That is not effective watering of patio containers. I mean, to really get good, thorough, deep watering in your containers, you want to target the application of the water right onto the soil surface. There's no need to get the foliage wet at all. You're not cooling off the plant or anything like that. You target it right at the soil level. And what you really want to do is you want to let that hose or watering can really run on the soil until at least 20% of the volume of water that you put in the top of the pot comes out the drainage hole in the bottom. That's flushing through the excess fertilizer salts, and it's really letting the water to get down deep into the root system of the plants. And then do it 2 or 3 times on each pot. So I water a container. I might have the hose on it for, 30 or 60 seconds. Then I go to the next container and do it. Then I go back to the first container and do it again, right? That's what it takes to especially if the soil is really dry, that's what it takes to really get good, thorough saturation in that potting soil.
Well, and for new gardeners, and I would guess that many experienced gardeners do not realize how long and how much water it takes to actually hydrate a dried out container.
It's one of the biggest issues that I see with container gardeners, really, especially new ones. They want to know why they failed, why their plant is yellowing, and but I'm watering. And I'll say, well, how are you watering? Because if you're doing the splash and dash, you're not going to have healthy, productive plants. And the other trick I found is that if I mix my potting soil about 50-50 with high quality finished compost, that compost almost acts as a sponge, and it really holds on to the moisture in the soil. In the potting soil, it makes it a little bit sturdier, so to speak, right? And it really holds on to water a lot longer. So I have to water a little bit less when I do that. So in almost all my containers, unless I'm growing a cactus or a succulent, I will mix it 50-50 with compost and potting soil.
Yeah, if you think you've got it watered, take your finger and scratch down about an inch. You'll realize probably not watered enough because it's bone dry there.
It is. And it's, I would say to people too, like if you're not sure, if it's a smaller sort of plastic container, that it's real easy to kind of pop the root ball of the plant out of there. When you think you've watered enough, try to pop that root out. And I bet you halfway down the container, yeah, it'll be bone dry in there.
Okay, well, we just want to know for our listeners how we can find out more about you, where to find your books, all of your great information, and the YouTube video that you're going to be doing about keeping containers watered and all your great information.
Sure. So they can find me in probably the primary way to find me is through my website, which is Savvy Gardening, SAVVY Gardening, Savvy Gardening. And we're on all social media channels. That's myself and my two business partners there, Nikki Jabor and Tara Nolan, who are also fellow horticulturists and garden writers. And so we do, that's all our social media channels are Savvy Gardening, which would be YouTube and Instagram, Pinterest, Facebook, Twitter, all those guys. So find us there. My books, including Plant Partners and all my insect-oriented books, are all available wherever books are sold, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, bookshop.org, or your independent booksellers.
Whether you're a new gardener or a weekend warrior or advanced gardener, the book is something you need to get. It's something that has educated Holly and I to a level that we didn't think. We have learned a lot from your book, and we advise other people and encourage other people to purchase it.
Oh, I'm so pleased to hear you say that, because I know what experienced gardeners you are. And my goal with the book was definitely to, be able to teach even folks who have been gardening for a very long time a few new tricks.
Well, Jessica, we greatly appreciate the time you've offered us, and thank you for being with us on the program today.
Thank you for the invitation. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome. And when we come back, it's going to be your garden questions, our garden answers. It's the Gardening with Joey and Holly radio show.
Question? Give Joey and Holly a call now or anytime 24/7. Just dial 1-800-927-SHOW. If you can't get through, leave a message and they will call you back. Call now 1-800-927-SHOW.
Rinse Kit, your hose on the go, pressurized water at your fingertips. Without pumping or battery, simply fill from your spigot or sink on your way out to the garden, beach, or anywhere. Spray it, wash it, Rinse Kit.
Wild Delight has a complete line of premium feed for wild birds and other wildlife. It contains the finest ingredients for your outdoor birds. Fill your bird feeders with a selection of Wild Delight's premium quality mixes to have a yard full of colorful birds. Wild Delight's premium mixes are made with tasty nuts and berries, and not just filler food like Milo and cracked corn. Feed the birds the nutrition they need. This keeps your feathered friends coming back year after year. Find out more at wilddelight.com. Protect your plants against damage with a 3-in-1 plant guard and special blend fertilizer. Visit ivorganics.com.
Chip Drop is a website you can sign up for free wood chip mulch delivery right to your door. For free, Chip Drop connects homeowners and gardeners with tree services who are trying to get rid of their wood chips. You can also sign up to get free logs and firewood. Go to chipdrop.com to learn more and sign up for a free account. If you could double the life of your raised bed boxes by sealing the wood with a clear, non-toxic wood preservative, would you? Well, now you can with a clear, penetrating product called Internal Wood Stabilizer. It's 100% non-toxic and easy to apply. Seal your untreated wood surfaces, even chicken coops, by spraying on Internal Wood Stabilizer. It's invisible, seals the wood from the inside out, and never wears off. Recommended by organic gardening experts. Internal Wood Stabilizer. Check it out at timberprocoatingsusa.com. We know that you appreciate the value of a beautifully landscaped yard, but tackling such a project yourself can seem way too complicated, right? Bloomin' Easy plants are the answer. Their plants are low maintenance and offer exceptional beauty and color for your yard. Plus, they offer free seasonal care reminders with simple how-to videos tailored to the plants that you choose. With Bloomin' Easy on your side, creating the yard that you've always wanted becomes as easy as plant, water, and relax. Check them out at your local garden center or by visiting bloomineasyplants.com. Joey here of the Gardening with Joey and Holly radio show, and like you, we've struggled to find a good plant support system that can last for more than one season or two and be easily stored. But now there is. Easy Step Products manufactures a unique multifunction and multi-purpose plant support system. It's designed for tomato plants, but it's useful for any vegetable and flower plants you're growing. This is like having a 24/7 bodyguard for your plants. The 60-inch heavy-duty Easy Step in-post and easy rings are overbuilt by design so that when you combine the two together, they make the perfect plant support system on the market. I love that you can add the rings during the growth cycle without damaging the plant. It's easy to adjust them up and down, and they store so easily. They even have a no-hassle 10-year warranty, and they're made in America. Order now and receive a third plant support absolutely free with purchase of any kit and use promo code Joey123. Buy yours today at EasyStepProducts.com or visit the dealer locator for closest retailer near you or purchase at Mother Earth News General Store. EasyStepProducts.com. The Gardening with Joey and Holly radio show is brought to you by the following: Simply Earth, Seed Savers Exchange, Quick Snap Sprinklers, Water Hoop, Timber Pro Coatings, Bloomin' Easy Plants, Pomona Universal Pectin, Ivy Organics, Tiger Torch, Happy Leaf LED, Seedlink. Find all sponsors at the WisconsinVegetableGardener.com and thank them for their support. Welcome back to the Gardening with Joey and Holly radio show. It's time for questions and answers. You've got a question? You can get a hold of us very easily. You can email us at gardentalkradio@gmail.com. That's gardentalkradio@gmail.com. Or if you'd like to jam your fingers in the phone and give us a ring-a-ding-ding, you can do that by calling 1-800-927 SHOW, 1-800-927-SHOW, toll-free, coast to coast, and we can get the question answered. If we can't get you on the show, leave a message. We will call you back. Had a number of questions come in this week, and we will start with Greg from Illinois. Holly?
So no one has ever answered.
Greg from Illinois.
Oh. Greg from Illinois writes in, who listens via podcast? Hi, love the show. It's been super helpful. Last year was my first year gardening. This year I'm trying to start many of my plants from seeds. I have some pink plume celery started. They're in nutrient-dense soil and are in a tray that waters from the bottom. They are growing under a grow light for 16 hours per day, and I have a floor fan blowing on them. Many of the seedlings are still falling over. The light is probably 4 inches above the seedling. What could cause them not doing well?
Well, this sounds like a typical case of dampening off. Dampening off is a fungal disease that is in your soil because of oversaturation. What occurs is the fungal thing happens and it basically rots the stalk of the plant off at soil level. So a couple of things in which one can do is reduce the amount of watering in which you're doing. And secondly, you can sprinkle cinnamon right now at the time of planting. It doesn't matter, and you can water that cinnamon in whenever you're watering or bottom watering. It doesn't affect it. The cinnamon has antifungal properties, which will fight the dampening off fungus problem there. In addition, you may be getting soil gnats, and that cinnamon actually helps reduce the amount of soil gnats because of the fragrance of the cinnamon. So dampening off is the problem there. Too much moisture, add a little cinnamon, dusting of cinnamon across. Those that have fallen over are already gone. Try to save what you can, and you might have to start some new plants, but now we all know this is a trick that Callie Kim I got it from Callie Kim YouTube channel. She's over in Southern California. We've had her on the program last year. It's not proven by master gardeners or university, but it works for this application. Let's go over to the Boston area, Holly. TJ has a question that he's wrote in.
Sure. So my wife and I work together on Tuesday and Saturday. We listen to you on our way to work. We're looking for an accurate pH meter for testing our garden beds and lawn areas. We bought a 110-year-old house 4 years ago, and we were looking at improving the lawn for greener grass and garden beds for flowers only. We only plant perennials. There's way too much animal life for outdoor vegetables, and we both work 2 jobs. All of the reviews we have read suggest there is no accurate pH meters for any price, and testing strips are just as bad. They suggest that you send your soil samples to university for testing. Is this your experience as well? Love your show.
Well, we thank you for listening. TJ listens, and his wife listens to us on WCRN 830 AM out of the New England area. So this kind of with a lawn, you're wanting a pH level between 5.8 and 7.2 for warm season grasses. Tolerate some warm season grasses will tolerate a little lower pH. White cool season grasses prefer slightly higher pH, but about a 5.8 to 7.2. Obviously, yes, you can do a soil sample, send it to your local university extension. They're going to give you an adequate reading of what your pH is and nutrient value of the soil. We've worked with a company before called Soil Savvy. They're out of the Pacific Northwest. You purchase the product through Amazon. You fill the vials up. You send it off. They email you back with a 16-point analyzation of your soil test. Now, there are soil meters that are available that do somewhat of a decent reading. Now, obviously, you pay for what you get. The El Cheapo model you bought on sale for $1.99 probably are not going to give you the adequate reading as something that is $40 or $60 or $100.
So this is what I would do. Is that since this house was just purchased and it's 110 years old, I would get my soil sample test done, and then I would buy a meter and I would then, before I make any changes, I would test my soil in various spots, mark that down, make the changes, and see kind of how it compares to what the university or whoever you send the soil test to, and then go from there and use that to calibrate. So say that the soil sample test came back and said your soil in your front yard is 5.8, and you buy yourself a decent soil tester and it says that your soil in your front yard is 6. That way you kind of have an idea. Right,
which most of these higher end ones have a variable of about 0.2. Right. So that would be kind of in that range.
Right. If it's way off, then you at least know that too.
Right.
But that way you
send the soil tester back where you got it.
That way you're using your best resources, your best science, and you can go from
invest in the initial soil test, and then invest in a good quality soil meter, a pH meter, and go from there. So that being said, hopefully that helps you. We got time for one more question here. So can you plant rutabagas in the spring, and if so, how soon? I just got some seeds the other day and I want to plant them as soon as possible. Do they grow in the spring, and what has been your experience?
Sure. So you can plant them as soon as the soil warms up enough in your area. So it depends on where you live, obviously. Right. But once you're past that frost date, you can plant those seeds.
Well, you can plant those earlier because those are frost-tolerable plants. Rutabagas are.
But not too early.
No, not too early. Not if you're going to get 4 or 5 or 6, days of 18 degrees. That's not going to help you at all.
So, but right around your last average frost date, maybe like a week before.
Week or two before, based on, read the back of the seed packet. Now, can you plant them in the spring? Yes, you can. We've had one successful rutabaga harvest in the spring out of about 5 tries. So we plant them about the first week in August, and rutabagas take about 90 days to mature. So we're getting them early to middle of November. And we've had phenomenal success because as the days get cooler, the rutabaga grows better, and so does turnips. In the spring, as the day lengths get longer and the temperatures get warmer, that's a signal for the rutabagas and the turnips to go to bolt or seed production. So keep that in mind as well. Well, we are out of time, and we thank you for yours. Did you miss any portion of the show today? Did you tune into your radio late? Well, you can revisit the show by going to your favorite podcast platform and searching the Gardening with Joy and Holly radio show, or our parent website, the WisconsinVegetableGardener.com, or you can send us an email to gardentalkradio@gmail.com and ask us for a copy of the show via MP3 file, and we can send that to you at no charge. That's what we do, provide you information to help your garden grow better. Join us next week on the program when we'll be talking about building raised beds, the pros and the cons, as well as the importance of birds in the garden and how to bring them in and how to keep them there. Our guests will be Sean and Allison McManus will be with us, authors there, and will answer your garden questions. So until next week, for
Holly Baird,
I'm Joy Baird, and we will see you in the garden.